serving in the Army National Guard?
I've been in the Army National Guard for 40 years now. My wife and I have been married for 42, so we've taken this journey together.
How many times have you been deployed? Where and when?
Okay, and for a National Guardsman, deployment can mean a lot of things. So probably 3 long-term deployments, one into combat, one for a Homeland Security mission, and then one serving down at Central Command. So my first long-term deployment was to a Homeland Security mission after 9/11, where we took care of all of the security on the Army and Air Force bases east of the Mississippi. We also handled some medical issues when people came back from combat. My next deployment was to Afghanistan as head of Task Force Phoenix. Spent about 13 months over there dealing with the Afghan security forces, and quite a interesting story there. And then my third deployment was with U.S. Central Command, where I went throughout their area of operations, anywhere from Djibouti to Saudi Arabia to Iraq, and back into Afghanistan and Uzbekistan and places like that. So that's kind of 3 years of my career there. And then we have other deployments, more shorter term, where we were, as a captain, I was building roads down in Ecuador after the landslides and the floods back in the mid-'80s. Went to Italy, to Europe, all of those as training and presence missions.
What are your day-to-day experience as Adjutant General?
Wow, no day's the same. The great thing about being the Adjutant General is you're dealing with the greatest Americans around. I mean, people who take from their civilian lives and are willing to serve at their own expense to serve others. And it's just an incredible experience to work with them. So my job, I've got 3 fairly simple missions, but they can be very hard sometimes. My first one is I prepare airmen and soldiers to go into combat or to do state duty. So spent a lot of time talking about training strategies, equipping strategies, visiting people who are training, giving input on training, and getting these units ready to go. And that varies anywhere from infantry units at the battalion level to single brigades, brigade combat teams, engineers, MPs, just a whole variety of units to go into combat. In fact, today we have our attack helicopter battalion, along with our heavy lift Chinooks in combat today. So that's one of the biggest things we do. The second piece is that as the Adjutant General, I help prepare the state through emergency management, Kim Stinson and his people, to deal with emergencies that occur in the state. And we work for the governor in that case. When I prepare units for combat, I work for the president. And then the third thing we do is that in the event something happens in the state of South Carolina, we command and control the troops that come into South Carolina. So all of my activities are built around those pieces. But as the Adjutant General, a lot of what I do is outreach. I want to educate our legislators, both at the state and national level, about what we do and our needs, because so many people don't understand the National Guard. And then to educate the public about what we do. And what I find is the more you communicate, the more you educate, people make good decisions and they support their military.
What are your biggest challenges in the Army National Guard, and why?
I would say balancing the need to serve the people of the state of South Carolina and the people of the United States, and caring for our troops. I mean, we talk about we've got a lot of challenges. Some of them are money related. We need new equipment. We need to pay for new technology. And a lot of people tell you budgets are a challenge. But our people always find a way to accomplish the mission. And you have to be careful because our people are so dedicated that they will sacrifice themselves, their families, everything that they hold dear to serve others. And you have to help them learn to balance that. We talk about the 5 F's. We talk about faith, family, finances, friends, and your personal fitness. So helping our soldiers and airmen really understand that piece. We prepare our people for combat. We are one of the most ready National Guards in the nation. And so those kind of things, our people take care of that. I got to help them balance.
In Camp Phoenix.
A lot of challenges. When we went over there, the police were dying, the Afghan police were dying at a very high rate, several hundred per month. And we were taking on a new mission. The rotation before us had just a mission of training and mentoring. When we talk about mentoring, that's the old advising mission in Vietnam, where you go out in combat with the Afghans. The unit that we took over from just had the Army, and we were picking up the police and actually going down and training with them and fighting with them down in the districts, down at the mud huts where they operated from. And when I remember my boss calling me in and said, I got some bad news and some more bad news. And he said that we've got this situation where the police were not trained, they weren't able to fight, and we were in danger of losing the programs because so many people were dying. And people would not want to join the police because of that. And the 3,000 troops that were supposed to come to help us do this, that you were going to get, they're going to Iraq because of the surge, but we still had people dying. And so the bad news is we've got people dying. We're not going to get any more help. So I asked my people to really thin down the ranks and to go out and do some very difficult missions and put them in harm's way. Now, we took all the precautions to make sure that they could be as secure as it could be, and we never sent them without a backup. But we asked them to do some very difficult things. So it was back to that part of you care for your people, but you have this very important mission to do. And so sending people into very difficult situations where they might lose their lives in order to accomplish a mission. It's easy for me to say I'm going to put myself in danger, but putting others in danger is probably the more difficult thing that I've had to do. And we were successful. We were able to reduce the police being killed to less than 100. We were able to increase their effectiveness, and at that point the Afghans were fighting their own war. And so it was worth it. And then on the back end, the challenges is to help families and talk to families for those soldiers, airmen, sailors, Marines, and I had them all, even Coast Guard, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice to come back and talk to their families. And that was an incredible experience in itself, because the families would talk about their service member and how that's, I did have one family member go, you killed my son or daughter, and in this case it was all males. Nobody's ever said that. They always said, they were doing what they needed to do, what they wanted to do, and they were making a difference. And that's an incredible part there. And also dealing with service members and the families whose lives have been changed forever. So a lot of hard pieces in there, and it continues today because we still deal with that. But the change and the service that everyone makes it all worth it. Really no history. Not what the internet tells you, not what even museums tell you, but go find books about history and interpret it for yourself. So many people want to change history because history's hard. We went through a civil war in this country. A lot of people want to change the Civil War, both sides. And we went through, and that was our second Civil War. Our first Civil War is when we rebelled against England. And if you talk to the English, they got a little bit different interpretation of the war than we do. But you need to understand it. You need to understand why things happen and why people do what they do. Because that's who you are. And I have to tell a real quick story that my wife tells. And we were at church one day, and a lady had come back to church after being gone for a while, and she, Barbara and she were talking, and one of the old, the guys, the older people in the church, he kind of walks up and breaks into the conversation, just like, I own this place, because he probably did. But he goes, "Who are you?" Talking to the lady, and she said, "Well, I'm Teresa, and I've just come back to church." He says, No. Who are you?" He didn't want to know her name. He didn't even want to know where she was born. He wanted to know about her family. He wanted to know who made her who she was. And that's a pretty powerful question, is who are you? So the thing I would ask you to do is study history, study your own history. And then given that history, find a way to serve. Find a way to do something good for somebody else. It's because you care about other people. And the military is not the only way to serve, but your life will be so much different if you help other people and you serve other people. That's what I'm going to talk about when I'm at the old folks home. I'm not going to talk about my own accomplishments. I'm going to talk about people we touched and the experiences that I had helping other people. So know who you are through history all the way back and find a way to serve.